Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Karen White. I'm the Vice Chair for the South Bend Common Council. I would like to call the Monday, July 27, 2020 meeting of the South Bend Common Council. Prior to moving forward, I would now ask Clerk Don Jones to give comments regarding the links for this meeting.
Good evening, members of the public. For audio quality, we will be muting everyone not speaking by default to maintain good audio quality for council and yourselves. If you would like to speak during the meeting on a specific agenda item, please submit your request in the chat directions to do so. The directions to do so are in the chat. We ask that you provide your full name and your address, as those are required for all speakers at in-person council meetings. If you would like to be called on during the meeting to provide public input, please insert the following into the chat and you will be called on during the relevant time for that public input. Insert your name and your address, and you would like to speak for or against the agenda, whatever agenda item. You will then be given 3 minutes to speak. Please be sure to unmute yourself prior to giving your remarks. For citizens that wish to speak the privilege of the floor, please insert the following into the chat, and the council president will call on you during the relevant time for public input. Again, my name is and I live at. You will then be given 3 minutes to speak. And again, please be sure to unmute yourself.
Thank you. I would like to read for the record, due to the executive order by Indiana Governor Eric Holcomb, the South Bend Common Council meetings will be legally held by way of a virtual meeting by using Microsoft Teams applications. It's also been asked, and I need to ask the clerk at this time, if the agenda can be reduced so that individuals can see who's speaking. I don't know if that's an option or not. At this time, our invocation will be given by Apostles Charles and Betty Harris of New Life Church.
Okay, can we be heard now?
Yes, you may. Yes, you can.
Okay, well, we're going to pray. And then once we get done, we can click out, right?
Yes, you can. Or you can stay on and hear the rest of the meeting if you so desire.
Oh, okay. All right, well, we can go to the throne of grace right now.
Hallelujah.
Father, we just thank you and praise you, Lord, for your abundance of grace, for giving us the privilege to come before the throne of grace this evening. And Father, we lift this meeting up today in the name of Jesus, and we trust that your spirit is just going to be in this meeting today, that this is going to be a special meeting, a different meeting. Father, we pray for any stress or anything that would come to deter the people right now in the name of Jesus. And Father, we thank you for the peace of God, that each one will let the peace of God rule and govern their hearts and minds through the Lord Jesus Christ. We thank you for your grace and your mercy right now. And we thank you for covering this meeting by your spirit in Jesus' name. Amen.
Father, we thank you for divine wisdom. We thank you, Father, that according to your word, God, your word says the heart of your leaders are in your hand, oh God.
Thank you, Lord.
And we thank you, Father, that their hearts are in your hand and you're turning it toward the wisdom of the just. So we thank you for divine wisdom that flows from you, Father, for the administration of the affairs of this city, oh God, concerning what you would have be done, oh God, for the good of the people, oh God.
Hallelujah.
We thank you for your wisdom that flows, oh God, through those that are in church, through those that are administrating the affairs of this city, Father. And we thank you, Father, that this city will become a lighthouse for other cities, oh God, desire how we administrated or how we went about the affairs of this city, and that you will get all the glory, all the honor, and all the praise. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
We thank you so much for that invocation. At this time, we'll go to Mrs. Jones, our clerk, city clerk, and will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Lee.
Here.
Councilmember Davis.
They took Karen to church.
I know.
I can't stop laughing. Hey, Henry's here.
Okay. Councilmember McBride.
Present.
Councilmember Warner,
Here.
Councilmember Teschka,
Here.
Councilmember Skoski,
Here.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Present.
Councilmember Hammond,
Present.
Vice President White,
Present.
all present.
Thank you so much. We'll now have the report from the Subcommittee on Minutes. Mrs. Jones, will you please read the report from the Subcommittee on Minutes?
Report of the Subcommittee on Minutes to the Common Council of the City of South Bend. The subcommittee has inspected the minutes of the July 13th, 2020 meeting of the council and found them to be correct. Therefore, we recommend the same be approved.
Thank you. Is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you so much. It's been moved and second. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Yes. Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. The minutes have been accepted. We'll now move to special business. Prior to asking Clerk Jones to read Bill 2022, I will now ask our attorney, Bob Palmer, to outline the procedures that we will follow in terms of the mayor's veto of Bill 20-22. Attorney Palmer.
Thank you, Vice President White. Bill 2020 was passed by the council at the last meeting with a 5-4 vote. It was sent to the mayor. The mayor vetoed the bill. Under Indiana law, unless the council votes at the next subsequent meeting to override the veto stands. This is that meeting. Any council member may make a motion to override the veto. A discussion on the motion, if made, will be limited to council members explaining the reason they will or will not vote to override the veto if they choose to do so. There is no need to repeat all the arguments for or against the original resolution. However, council members can do so if they choose to do so. There will be no public hearing on the motion to override. The public hearing on the resolution was held last week. The resolution cannot be amended at this point. The only motion that can be made regarding this resolution is a vote to override the veto. And any vote to override the veto must be carried by a 2/3 majority, which is 6 members. Thank you, Vice President White.
Thank you so much. I will now entertain a motion regarding Bill 20-22.
Chair, could you please repeat that? This is Henry. I'm sorry.
My statement was I would now like to entertain, before I do that, I would like to ask Clerk Jones to read Bill 2022 in regards to, then I will ask for a motion.
Okay. 2022, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, addressing the emerging homelessness crisis, strongly encouraging Mayor Mueller to promptly prepare and present to the Common Council an emergency temporary aid and shelter program to respond to the emerging homeless crisis and to prepare an ordinance declaring a state of emergency relating to the current homelessness crisis, authorizing the suspension of certain regulations to facilitate the emergency temporary aid and shelter program and providing for approval of such emergency services contracts as are necessary to support this program.
And what the next step would be is that we need to entertain a motion to override the mayor's veto. We're not revisiting the ordinance. The motion would be to at least put a motion on the floor to either override, in terms of overriding the mayor's veto. That is the action that is before us.
Chair, could you please tell us when can we make comments?
Okay, as the attorney has, let me recognize you first, okay? I want to make sure I know everybody. So at this time, are there any questions before we move forward? I know Councilmember Henry Davis, you have a question. And as the attorney has stated, after the motion has been placed on the table and it has been seconded, then council members can make comments regarding the veto, and you have the opportunity to make 2 comments.
Great. I'd like to make a motion that 2022 go to full council with a favorable recommendation.
Okay. Now, that's not the motion. The motion.
I'm sorry. No, you're right. Because we're not in that section. I'm sorry.
No.
I'm sorry. I'd like that 2022 pass full council with a favorable recommendation or favorable.
Okay, Councilmember Davis, I'm going to ask the attorney to clarify that, but that resolution has been passed. What is before us is a motion to either to override the mayor's veto. That's the action that's before us that needs a second. I'm going to ask Attorney Palmer, will you please repeat the action in order in terms of the recommendation?
Yes, Vice President White. If one of the council members makes a motion to override the mayor's veto on Bill 2022, and the motion is seconded, there will be an opportunity for council members to make comments or statements or explain their votes on Bill 2022, followed by a vote which must pass by a 2/3 majority or 6 votes to pass. If the bill passes, Bill 2022 will be enacted and the mayor's veto will be overridden.
Okay.
Now I would like to, now I would like to entertain a motion. I think that is Councilmember Henry Davis.
I'm sorry. I really messed all of that up. I would like to make a motion that 2022 to override the mayor's veto.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Now we will go to council members that would like to make comments regarding the mayor's veto. I'm going to start with, in order to get everyone, if it meets your pleasure, I would start with the 1st district and go all the way down and then come back for a second question, if individuals would like to. Are you in agreement with that particular process, council members?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Hammond, I do see your hand, but I'm going to start with the 1st district and just move all the way down and then come back. Every council member will have an opportunity to speak in regards to the veto of this resolution. I would first start out with 1st District Council Member Kenneth Lee.
I would just like to say that I voted for it. I don't have any other comments.
Thank you. 2nd District Councilman Henry Davis.
Yes, the only comment that I have is that I am really a bit sidelined by the idea of this particular way of action. The resolution was put out there to, in fact, help the homeless and also the people in Monroe Park area, which is the 2nd district. I have no understanding of why anyone will, first of all, vote against it. Second of all, the mayor vetoing it when it's not legally binding. The resolution was put out front to help out in a very extreme situation that was taking place in Monroe Park area. right on the edge of downtown. All the resolution was asking for was some support for the residents in Monroe Park and the folks that are a part of Tent City. And as of the current day, you have more violence, you have more attraction to the area that is not helpful to the residents in the neighborhood of Monroe Park. And so that's it. It's very simple. Whether somebody felt like the language was too harsh or wasn't what they felt like, was best, that has nothing to do with it. The intent from the very beginning was only to not only bring attention to the matter, but find some resolve that will support the neighborhood, the residents over there, and also the folks who need it most. And those are the folks that are homeless. I have no more to say. I just don't understand it. You have a heart, please.
We thank you for your comments. We'll now go to 3rd District Representative, Councilwoman Sharon McBride.
Thank you. I voted for it and I have no additional comment. Thank you.
We go to 4th District, Councilman Troy Warner.
Thank you, Vice President White. I support the intent of this. I said that 2 weeks ago. However, the reality is there are words, there are texts. We don't pass a bill based solely on intent. And when you look at the words and the texts and the 14 action points on this, a couple of them are likely illegal. And to this point, we don't know if these are feasible or financially doable. And, I think no matter what happens, the mayor is on the clock, and we'll see what happens from here. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the 5th District, Councilman Jeff Tesco.
Thank you, Chair.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to, I want to start out by echoing what, Councilmember Warner has just said. Those of us who I think voted against this, voted against it because, not because of the intent, but because of the words listed in the resolution, right? As a council, we don't pass intent, we pass words on paper. And with all due respect to, all of our council colleagues, it had been suggested that, this was just a kind of a suggestion. These weren't mandates. These were, those sorts of things. And it was, in fact, a very specific list of things that, the council was asking from the mayor. And so that's why I voted against it initially. I will say that, I spent time down in Monroe Park this past Saturday morning, touring the area. And it didn't take that to make me believe that this is a serious issue. I've known that this is a serious issue, and it's one that we need to act on. We need to act on quickly. And I would strongly encourage the mayor and the administration to do something. And it's my understanding that they have enacted a working group, and I would encourage that group move at the speed of light to get something done. Had this resolution said, instead of listing very specific things, had this resolution said, we as a council believe that this is a crisis and that the administration should work with the council and with providers to get something done, I think that resolution would have passed 9-0. And so, with that in mind, I would say, if a resolution is necessary at this point, I would say let's go back, let's bring it back forward with that language 2 weeks from now. Or we can just roll up our sleeves and get to work with the administration and get something done. But as it stands before us, I will be voting to the same way that I did 2 weeks ago, and that would be to uphold the mayor's veto.
Thank you. We'll now move to the 6th District Representative Sheila Niskoski.
Thank you, Chair. I can only really echo what Councilman Warner and Councilman Teshka said. Had the intent, we can't vote on intent. It should have been written more clearly. It should have been written with legal points in it, not illegal points in it. And I just can't vote yes to something that is not framed properly. I do have a heart. And I too had been out and toured that Monroe Park. And my heart goes out to them. I hope that we can come together and find a resolution, because what's going on out there is unfair to the people in Tent City. It's unfair to the residents. And moreover, from what I heard from those residents, it's not the people in Tent City that's creating the major issues there. It is actually people that are there doing, let's just say, doing things that they should not be doing, and it's not being addressed. So I do have a heart. My heart goes out to every one of the people in that area, but I cannot vote for something that is not stated clearly and properly and legally. So I will be voting no.
Thank you. We'll now move to the at-large council members. Councilwoman Lori Hammond.
Thank you, Vice President White. So my goal is to care for the homeless and the unsheltered and the community impacted by this horrible situation. These, to me, are issues that need urgent and immediate attention. There are a number of things that we as a council have to address. A few of these issues are a matter of urgency and do not give us the luxury of long-term planning alone. Hunger is one of these issues. Homelessness is another of these issues. I know that I have been very passionate in my approach, and I will continue to be passionate about these issues. What I would like to say to my fellow council members is that I'm open to working with anyone, whether it includes modifying this resolution or creating legislation to move these very critical issues and the solutions to them forward. Again, I believe that we must commit to immediate solutions as well as long-term planning. Every day that someone remains homeless, they are left victim to the elements, to criminal activity, and to extreme suffering. These are urgent issues in the short term. Then, as we have all stated our commitment to, we can start work on long-term planning as well. I urge you to search your heart. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan, at-large member.
Thank you, Chair White. Voting no on the resolution was not a no vote for the homeless. I had plenty to say at the committee meeting and the council meeting 2 weeks ago when voting on this resolution. So I'd just like to refer people to that recording and my public comments as well. The four of us who had voted no on the resolution issued a media release on Saturday, and we state there our reasons for voting no, which were also echoed here by council members Warner, Teshka, and Nitzkotsky. Thank you.
Thank you. I voted for the resolution. Somehow it has been stated that I was a sponsor. I was never a sponsor. I voted in support of the resolution in terms of the need to begin to address the homelessness as well as other related issues. So at this time, if there's no further comments, there's no public input because the resolution has been presented and was passed. The action before us, in which we do have a motion on the floor, and it has been seconded. And if there's no other comments, then I would like to have the motion repeated and then the roll call. City Clerk Jones, would you please repeat the motion?
The motion that was made was to override the veto regarding the resolution. Yeah, the resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana.
Okay, and it was seconded. And we've had input from council members. Now I would ask for you to call the roll call, please.
Councilmember Davis. Councilmember Davis.
Give me a minute. I'm here with you. That was my motion, so I say aye.
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
No.
Councilmember Teschka.
Nay.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Nay.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Nay.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
5 ayes, 4 noes.
And the motion is defeated. We'll now move to reports from city officers. Our Mayor James Mueller will give an update on COVID-19, after which council members, you will have the opportunity to ask 2 questions regarding the COVID-19, as well as concerns that you might have. Again, I ask that you wait until the presentation and that you wait until you're acknowledged to speak so that we can make sure every council member will have the opportunity to ask questions. Now we'll have an update regarding COVID-19 from Mayor James Mueller.
Good evening, council members, and thank you for the invitation to speak about COVID-19. It's been a little while since we focused on this, and unfortunately, we do have some unfortunate news of where we're headed, and it seems that a lot of people in our country, in our state, in our county, and in our city have moved past the COVID-19 pandemic, but the virus is tenacious. And when we let our guard down, it can come back with a vengeance. And so we've had a fairly bad July so far, and we're set to have an even worse August. There are 617 active cases in our county, and that's out of the 2,817 total cases confirmed for our county for the entire pandemic. So just over a fifth of cases currently, or the current cases account for just over a fifth of all cases since we began this earlier this year. There's been, of the confirmed cases, that accounts for over 1% of the population confirmed to be infected. And if the CDC has put out that based off of confirmations or tested positives, it's likely to have 8 to 12 times that number. So we're likely somewhere either approaching 10% or over 10% of our population has been infected, whether they've been asymptomatic or have had other symptoms. Right now, that means that we have 17.2 new daily cases per 100,000 residents. And for comparison, when we started the month in July, on July 3rd, we had 4.4 new daily cases per 100,000. So we've gone up dramatically over the course of this month. And so while we were very cautiously optimistic heading into the 4th of July weekend, we've since moved up into a territory we don't want to be. And we need to work to get that back under 10 active cases or daily cases per 100,000 as quickly as possible. And ideally, we'd like to be under 5, go back to where we were on July 3rd, because that, if we get there, we'll feel pretty confident about being able to open things up further and get kids back to school. Statewide, another thing we look at in addition to the new daily cases per 100,000 is the positive test rate. And statewide, that's roughly 7.8% currently. And for a reference, we'd like to have that be closer to 3% to continue opening things up. 77% of Indiana COVID patients don't go to the hospital. 9.4% go to the ER but are sent home. 10.7% are hospitalized but don't need ICU. 2.9% do go to the ICU. And as you know, has been discussed in the past in many forums, the 71.3% of patients have recovered, and 4.4% of patients have unfortunately died. 2.5% in the hospital and roughly 2% elsewhere. 18.7% of patients are still sick but not in the hospital. 3.7% are still hospitalized but not in the ICU, and 1.9% are in the ICU. So those are of the confirmed cases. Of course, if that number of cases is 8 to 12, you can adjust those numbers accordingly, where a large number of asymptomatic infections go untested or unconfirmed. So with the surge of cases across the country and here at home, the delays of testing that we experienced during the first peaks this spring have returned, and so we were down getting close to a day or 2-day turnaround, and now in some cases they're a week or more, and that really makes them less effective in terms of containing the spread when it goes that long between when you get the results back and you get tested. The South Bend Clinic has opened new testing sites at WUBS on Lincoln Way and St. Adalbert's on Grace Street. And we're working hard to keep these and other existing testing sites open and address some of the funding challenges that are straining our health systems on the testing front. And similar to testing, the contact tracing with the surge, where the contact tracing can't keep up with the cases that we're looking at. And we're basically in another mitigation phase before we can get back to a containment phase. So what can we do in the mitigation? This spring, one of our biggest, the biggest tool in the box was shutting down our economy and going to the stay-at-home order, and that was obviously extreme and wreaked havoc on our economy. The good news is there's a lot of evidence that masks are very effective if used properly, and the St. Joseph County health officials have extended our local mask order through Labor Day, and the health board earlier this month approved the draft mask enforcement ordinance, which I believe is up for discussion with the county council tomorrow night and will be considered at their meeting in August. And then the governor announced last week a mandate on masks for the state, but has left the enforcement of that order to the local governments. The other, like I mentioned before, the other option was closing down our economy. And of the phased reopening from the first time we shut down, the governor, we've been, since the beginning of July or the July 4th weekend, we've been stuck in between stage 4 and stage 5 at what the governor calls stage 4.5. And so we were set to open up completely that weekend, and because the cases started to rise then, there was hesitance to open up to stage 5. And but now with the cases rising, it's possible that we may have to go back a step, and that's something that Marion County and Indianapolis announced last week, that they will prevent in-person class instruction until at least August 5th. They will limit social gatherings from the state level of 250 to 50 people, other than indoor religious ceremonies, and which can operate up to 50% capacity. And bars and nightclubs will be closed at least until August 12th. Restaurants will operate at 50%, and personal service like hair salons and nail parlors will be by appointment only. Gyms will be limited. Sporting events will be limited to 25%. So that's something that we're going to have serious discussion about as our numbers are going up. In fact, we're higher per 100,000 than Indy right now, but there are some positive signs that our transmission rate is not increasing the same way that it is down in Indy. But our state and our state's capital was placed nationally on a list of potentially emerging hotspots. So the goal of reopening and moving forward was we want to get our economy open and keep it open, and we need to get our kids back to school for in-person learning as soon as we can. And those are the pieces, the essential pieces that we must focus on. The extracurriculars, any other extracurriculars that have the potential to spread, we need to reconsider them, delay them, or even cancel them to get our numbers down so we can take care of the essentials and open our schools safely. And examples of these are we canceled Best Week Ever, which was set to be the rescheduled event was set to be the first week of August. And you saw today that the University of Notre Dame canceled hosting the presidential debate at the end of September. So while these are tough decisions, they're no-brainers, and we need to think about how all of us in our community can make sure that we're doing what we can to keep these essentials like kids getting back to school safely and our economy back on track as the focus. And we do know that there's a need for socializing, and while the weather is still warm, a need to make sure that that's happening outside primarily, and make sure masks are utilized to the maximum extent possible. The moratorium on eviction and utility shutoffs is set to expire, although we do hope that will be extended. The eviction moratorium expires at the end of the month, and the utility moratorium expires in the middle of August. We're thankful for council members Rachel Tomas Morgan, Troy Warner, and Chairwoman White for hosting the town hall event tomorrow night on different assistance and things for renters and other housing needs, and look to include the information about the federal CARES Act dollars for both rent and utility assistance. The good news is so far the backlog of payments on city utility bills is not too far off from a normal year, but this is likely in large part due to the CARES Act unemployment insurance of $600 a week that is also set to expire, and Congress continues to consider another stimulus package. You've seen probably it'll include another $1,200 stimulus check. They're debating about the level for extension of unemployment. The Democrats would like to see the $600 per week continue. The Republicans have offered, or the Senate Republicans have offered a counter at $200 per week. Hopefully they can at least get to the middle at $400. Higher would be better, of course, but if they could get to the middle, hopefully that would avoid serious issues and disruption to our residents and our economy. The other piece that looks that's going to be a hot topic is what kind of assistance the Congress will offer state and local governments. And it does look like some of the compromise may be that they will reallocate some of the original $150 billion that has gone largely, it hasn't been spent widely across the country, and particularly in the state where the state put on more restrictions than even what the Treasury had put on cities that didn't get a direct payment. So that looks to be the potential for revenue or other support from the federal government in terms of covering state and local governments' needs. And so with that, that's kind of the contours of where we are, and it's something that this is a serious emergency, health emergency and economic emergency that we're going to be dealing with for some time, and we need to stay vigilant and make sure that we continue to communicate that we need to stay on guard and prevent this from overwhelming our medical systems and having both a health and an economic disaster. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Council members, do you have any questions? Okay, I see the first hand is Councilwoman Lori Hammond. You can ask 2 questions. I would like to state also that there are a lot of comments that are being submitted, and we will make sure that those questions are given to the mayor or to the appropriate department so that we can list those responses on our website. At this time, Councilwoman Lori Hammond.
Thank you for the update, Mayor. I'm wondering about the quarantine center. What are we planning to have in place moving forward to allow some of the homeless and those that cannot shelter or quarantine at home? Where will they go?
That's a good question. The city took the lead on the what was called the IQC, the Isolation Quarantine Center, for the first wave, and we had I believe a 2-month original contract with the motel up in Roseland with a month extension. Subsequent to that agreement, the Roseland Town Council passed an ordinance, and which made we were grandfathered in because we had our agreement before that ordinance passed. So any subsequent agreement made that potential options in Roseland more difficult. The city operated IQC site closed its doors a couple weeks ago. The other point to mention is when we started, we projected a much higher need for potential individuals at any given time that we never realized. I think our maximum was about 20 at any given time, and it was a little over 80 that was served over the course of those 3 months. So looking at that, back in late May, we notified the health department that because it's a smaller scale, when we were figuring out how to divvy up different pieces of the COVID-19 response, that they could take the lead on the IQC in after the one up in Roseland closed down. But we did offer assistance, and we weren't just leaving that on them. But unfortunately, our team and the COVID-19 response coordinator, Jeff Ray, has talked to every hotel operator. When we got the one the first time, they were the only ones really willing to step forward. And now there's no hotel that we have found or motel that has been willing to step forward. And so the approach that the health officials have been pursuing is they believe in conversations with the shelters, Hope and Center for the Homeless, that they would be able to manage and figure out quarantine for their populations. And there are a number of potential sites that the health officials are working on for those who aren't in those shelters.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next council person, I'm going to read your name in order so that you can go. The first one or the next one would be Councilwoman Sharon McBride, followed by Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan, and then Councilman Kenneth Lee. Councilwoman McBride.
Thank you, Mayor, for the presentation. And Vice Chair, Ms. White, I would like to ask if you can clarify. We get a lot of emails. We get inundated with emails about people asking us to make the mask voluntary. Can you clarify that as far as council and administration, that the St. Joe County Health Department, their role with making that mandate and our role of not having that oversight? Because I'm sure that probably everybody's getting inundated, and I think that would help the public who are listening as well. Thank you.
Sure, that's a good point of how all the different layers of government work on this. So, I mean, at this point now, the governor has set a mandate, but doesn't have a clear enforcement mechanism. Our county health officials have had a mandate in effect since we went to stage 2 under the governor back in early May, and that has been extended through Labor Day. That is a county office, so there's not even a full city oversight of that group. There, as mayor of a second-class city, similar to the mayor of Mishawaka, we do have appointments. An appointment to the health board, which oversees the health office, but it's one of many. And so it is a distributed decision-making body, and so we've got to collaborate with all of our neighbors, the county and Mishawaka, and come up with what's best for the city. And that's one reason why early on we thought it would be helpful to get a COVID-19 response coordinator, and then get Jeff Ray ended up moving into that spot. But just being able to coordinate and have a single voice between the governments on what we're hearing and what we'd like to see done, it was critical. And so I think wouldn't be a surprise to people in the public. I think even I've heard from some outsiders that they refer to me and Mayor Wood as the left and right barriers or boundaries of what we'd like to see done. And so I think masks should be mandatory, because clearly the numbers don't lie. There's evidence that if we all followed the distancing guidelines and masks, we wouldn't have to shut down our economy. We could have our kids back in school, and we wouldn't see numbers moving up like they are. So we know that if we just leave it, unfortunately, if we just leave it to residents to do what they think is best, in this case, we are going to have either increasing case numbers that could get out of control. We'd have to shut down at least parts of our economy again. And the wearing a mask and following these guidelines, while annoying, is certainly less disruptive than shutting down parts of our economy, keeping kids at home and not being able to learn in person, or other measures that we would have to take. So while it's not in our purview, I have been pushing to take steps that are in many ways I would view as common sense. Wearing the mask and making sure the worst violators are encouraged and incentivized to wear masks is an important part in our fight against COVID-19.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan.
But that's a pretty low.
Not sure. Is that me? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your update. And I just wanted to thank you for mentioning the town hall for rental, utility, and legal assistance that we are hosting tomorrow at 5:30. I merely just wanted to also acknowledge Councilwoman Sheila Nietskatsky, who was a part of organizing the town hall, in addition to Councilman Warner and myself and Councilwoman Karen White. Sheila Nietskatsky and I have been on countless meetings with city staff and partners across the city to coordinate and share the resources that we're making available tomorrow, and look forward to sharing those, and just ask everybody to please share on Facebook and in social media the town hall, so we can get this information to as many people who are impacted by COVID and at risk of eviction and in need of rental and utility and legal assistance. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Kenneth Lee.
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you, Mayor, for the update. Also, I want to thank you for Friday, allowing the city and the Save Outreach team and the fire department, police department, and the county sheriff's department all working together, and we were able to pass out 1,700 masks to people in the inner city at the Martin Luther King Center. So thank you for that. We've been wearing masks for the last 3 months. Has there been any research telling us what's creating the uptick in cases?
Well, I mean, there's suspicions by our health officials. I mean, if you look at the numbers, the 4th of July celebrations, where people gathered and probably weren't abiding by the rules of distancing, staying outside, or sharing food, or whatever a normal celebration would entail. That's one. There's been graduation parties here now this weekend, and just anecdotally from the difference between this month and last month, I'm getting invited to things that I would not have gotten invited to a month ago. So even people who have been taking this threat seriously and who have been trying to be diligent, it's clear that there's fatigue and people are starting to let their guard down. And when you start to let your guard down, this virus is tenacious. It's going to take advantage if we don't stay focused. And then other people, when you wear a mask, the nose is also very important to cover. Sometimes people get lax about, okay, I got my mouth covered, but there's research to show that actually the air that comes out of the nose has a higher concentration of virus load. So all sorts of things, whether when you have masks, are you wearing them properly? Are you letting your guard down? Are you doing things in July that you didn't do in June? And we got to get back closer to June, which wasn't as bad as May or April in terms of being completely locked down. But we've got to go back closer to what we were doing in June.
Now, my other question is, what are we doing to enforce the mask with all of these gatherings? People have been cooped up for so long, and as you said, they're doing a lot of more celebrating. Is there anything coming from law enforcement for enforcing these gatherings, or to discourage people not from having these gatherings? Anything like that?
Well, currently the in stage 4.5 that we're under from Governor Holcomb's order is they allow up to 250. So, as I mentioned earlier, Indianapolis has gone down to 50. There's a lot of good practices we should be doing, but if you look at what we have on paper in terms of what we're able to enforce, we don't have those right now. Our health officials could work to limit gatherings. That's an authority that they do have, and that's something that we'll be discussing and seeing what's the best course of action to get this under control. But as I mentioned earlier, the county health officials have they represent a large group of stakeholders, and in particular in the governments, the city of Mishawaka, the county, and others, not just South Bend.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Troy Warner.
Thank you, Vice President White. I wanted to ask Mr. Mayor a couple questions about South Bend Water and the utility moratorium, and kind of how do we have an idea how many delinquencies we have that might be coming up when the utility moratorium is lifted, and is there a plan for, are we delaying shutoffs, or I know there is some assistance, utility assistance, not a whole lot. Are we considering more? And kind of what's the plan when that utility moratorium is lifted? Thank you.
Well, I mean, first of all, we hope that the governor will extend the moratorium. We don't know for sure, and we didn't know last time that he was going to extend it till the middle of August. But when we're seeing a increase of case levels, potentially some further restrictions on the economy, or at least activity, whether it's a formal restriction or people just start doing less, that's an impact on our economy. So as we're doing that, and some of the federal benefits are expiring, at least temporarily, this is not a great time to be lifting a moratorium on either evictions or utilities. So first and foremost, we hope it will be extended. If the governor chooses not to, we're not going to be looking to start shutoffs, that day or the day after. We'll reassess where we are and what kind of relief packages may be needed to get through it. But so, as I mentioned earlier, so far we're not seeing delinquencies or people falling behind that much different than a normal year, and so it may be a percentage point off. But so we're at roughly similar levels to normal years.
Thank you.
Is there any other council members who would like to ask a question? Councilwoman Sheila Niskoski.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Mueller, for the presentation for us. The only question I really had was a few weeks back, they had talked about the virus and the impact on the city, and they went by zip code. And since that time, I know there's been a lot of interaction in my district in trying to get masks out to people and information out to people. Do you know if those numbers comparatively, if you want to say by zip code or by parts of the city, is it started to even out? Is it still one side of the city, which would have been my district, looked like it was more heavily affected? Do you have a sense of where we're at there?
The last time I saw the broken out by zip code, which I believe was a week or so ago, it was still the same zip codes that were the highest per capita. Basically for the last 2 months are still the highest per capita. It is because we're far higher than we were at our peak in April and May, and so it is more prevalent across the city and across the county than it has been. But the zip codes, for whatever reason, last time I saw, now it could change with this new surge. There could be new hotspots emerging, and we'll next time the health officials break it down by zip code, we'll see, and hopefully that will happen later this week. That we'll be able to know for sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from council members? Seeing none, we'd like to thank the mayor for the update on COVID-19. The message is very, very serious, and as we as a community and state and throughout the country, as we come together to really address COVID-19 as best as we can, and to ensure that all of our citizens remain safe and healthy. It's really very challenging times in which we live in, but I think it's important that we know that we're all in this together. I would like to say that there have been a number of questions or comments made. We ask that they be submitted to the clerk's office, and we'll make sure that we'll get the response as best as possible and as quickly as possible as well. So we thank you for your update. We'll now move directly into the council portion of this meeting. We only have one bill that will be continued, so I'm going to ask Attorney Bob Palmer, can we just take a motion to continue Bill 1220 until the August 10th meeting and not have to resolve it to the committee of the whole?
That's correct, Your Vice President White. A simple motion to continue will be enough.
I would now like to entertain a motion to continue Bill 1220 until the August 10th meeting.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll, please?
Councilmember McBride.
Aye.
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Teshka.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond.
Aye.
Councilmember Lee.
Aye.
Councilmember Davis.
Aye. I'm here now.
Okay. Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Well, now I'll go directly to the resolution portion of our meeting. This is where bills will be given a third reading, and will be given a committee hearing in terms of receiving a recommendations from the committee. We'll have a public hearing input, and then we'll take action. City Clerk, will you please read Bill 20-23?
20-23, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, approving and adopting the Miami Hills Neighborhood Plan.
I would like to entertain a motion to hear the substitute version, please.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Warner.
Aye.
Councilmember Teshka.
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan.
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, there is. The Zoning and Annexation had a committee meeting today regarding Bill 2023, and it's been sent to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a sponsor or presenter to present a substitute version of Resolution 20-23?
Good evening, council members. My name is Tim Corcoran. I'm the Director of Planning for the City of South Bend, offices on the 14th floor of the County Sitting Building. Thank you so much for letting us speak with you tonight. So tonight we have in front of you the Miami Hills Neighborhood Plan. Just for a little bit of context, the impetus for the plan began when there was the potential, or there still is a potential, for a tax credit project to support the Miami Hills apartments. In order to that tax credit project to be as most competitive as it possibly can, a neighborhood plan is necessary to score the highest amount of points for the selection of that plan. So we wanted to make sure that the application could be as competitive as possible. And so we began working on this plan for the Miami Hills neighborhood in March of this year. Now, as you also know, at the same time, as you just heard the mayor talk about, COVID-19 became a part of our lives, and trying to conduct a neighborhood plan without meeting in person with the residents is a challenge. And so what we did is we developed a series of online tools to help the people of the neighborhood to be able to participate in the plan. And we sent out multiple mailings to keep alerting people when something new happened, for them to log back in and see and leave comments and see what other people's comments were as well. So these are things that we sort of pioneered in many ways for the first time for the planning department. And one of the really great results of this is that we started a larger conversation about creating a more robust online engagement platform for the city that we're talking about right now across multiple departments. So neighborhood plans like this are important because we would love to be able to have a plan in place for every area of the city, and but it's not easy to do or very fast. So this is an opportunity to look at an area that we hadn't investigated in a while, and at that point, I would like to turn it over to Chris Dressel and Andrew Netter.
All right. Good evening. I'm Andrew Netter, 14th floor of the County City Building, working in the Department of Community Investment. So we are presenting the Miami Hills Neighborhood Plan. We'll be discussing the plan area and city context, the community engagement process, and the strategic plan. As you can see from the context map, the Miami Hills neighborhood is located in the southern area of the city, just north of the bypass. It's about 3 miles from the downtown area. Getting into the neighborhood area, the border roads are Don Moyer Road on the north, Ireland Road on the south, Miami Street to the east, and Fellows Street to the west. Area institutions include Stanley Clark School, the Hebrew Orthodox Congregation, and the Livingstone's Church. Within the area, there are 2 medium density residential developments. You have Miami Hills Apartments and the Southmore Mutual Housing Corporation. There are also low density single family housing developments in the area. You have the Miami Hills subdivision off of Miami Street, and in the northwest corner of the neighborhood, At the intersection of Fellows and Don Moyer, there are more low-density single-family housing, as well as along Fellows near the Ireland intersection. The area is also home to Erskine Golf Course, as well as a city retention basin. So, given the inability to hold in-person meetings, we had to get creative with our engagement process. As Tim noted earlier, we reached out to area institutions, property management, and relevant city departments for discussion about current status of operations and plans for future development. So in lieu of holding a public meeting for the neighborhood, we developed an online engagement tool. This allowed participants to complete a series of exercises and provide input on 3 topics. Each exercise had a survey response component and an interactive map, which allowed participants to see what their neighbors were saying. In order to notify residents and property owners of the opportunity to participate in the online engagement, we mailed out postcards on 3 separate occasions with information regarding the plan and the process. So getting into the engagement activities, we had the first one was titled Map My Neighborhood. Participants were asked where they enjoyed going in and around the neighborhood and how they got from place to place. Participants were able to drop pins on the map and draw routes that they take to get to their destinations. As you can see from the map, the Ireland Road commercial area is a top destination for residents. Additionally, after reviewing written response, it was determined that travel outside of the area occurred mainly by car or public transportation, while travel by foot and bicycle stayed within the area and was mainly reserved for recreational purposes. The next activity focused on areas around the neighborhood where residents and property owners saw there was a need for improvement. The exercise asked residents to think about the neighborhood and make note of places where they thought there was a need for some type of improvement. Participants were able to place dots on an interactive map and explain what they thought needed to be improved. As you can see, there was a wide range of feedback. Notably, half of responses were related to property maintenance or improvements, and almost a third of responses were related to transportation and infrastructure. Looking at the property maintenance and improvement category, you can see that over a quarter of the responses were directly related to the Miami Hills apartments. The final exercise dealt with land uses. Participants were asked if they thought there were any land use types that were missing or underrepresented in the neighborhood and where they might fit within the context of the area. They were then asked to place those land use types on an interactive map where they thought they might appropriately be placed. There was a range of feedback for the exercise, but you can see that there was a preference towards residential uses. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris to go over the strategic plan goals.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Tim. Good evening, council members and Vice President White. This is Chris Dressel with the Department of Community Investment, offices on the 14th floor of this building. So at this stage of the presentation, we've heard about some current conditions. We've heard about our process and the sort of a summarization of the feedback we received from our respondents. And in the case of this plan, we developed goals at this stage based on what we were hearing and what we had seen on the ground. So we have 5 plan goals in the case of the Miami plan. and they are upgrading infrastructure, improving safe connections, exploring opportunities to introduce park recreational space, supporting production of a range of housing types, and supporting neighborhood beautification efforts. So with that in place, we moved on to the strategic plan content. So the sort of the action part of the plan. And the first step of the action related to the land use, and you should see a land use map that will show the areas sort of in some shade of orange, depending on your screen resolution. That's indicating areas that we feel there could be an introduction of low to moderate intensity residential, and then that can be found on the northwest part of the area, and then both along the Miami and the Fellows Corridor, and then also a smaller section in the lower or the southwest corner of the area that represents mixed use. So it should be said here that the introduction of this land use does not represent any development opportunities that's known by the city or any private developers. It's simply an allowance for new, in the case of most of this, new residential types in these areas. And we have no way of forecasting whether there'll be a change at all. As much of this area, if it's not vacant land, it's single-family housing, and that type of use is perfectly fine in the new proposed areas. So may not be a lot of changes, but what it does allow is a variety of housing types to allow greater housing choice. So those opportunities could be in the form of accessory dwelling units, duplexes, triplexes, and fourplexes. So it's no more than 4 units on a parcel. That's what the land use would again allow in this case. All right, then we'll take a look at the projects that are separated by those earlier goals under the upgrade infrastructure. We're proposing sidewalk improvements. The highest priorities would be those areas where there are no sidewalks. That's shown, those 3 locations on the map, on High Street, Fellows, and Miami. And then looking at adding ADA ramps in the Miami Hills subdivision that you find in blue. That's a subdivision at the time it was constructed. It did not include ADA, and so the area is essentially without any ramps within it. And then adding bus shelters, and we have that's represented in the circle on the map, showing where a bus shelter could be added on Fellows Street. And next goal under projects, we're looking at improving safe connections for non-motorized travel, and this is where we're looking at. We have a couple of factors with the neighborhood. One, it's surrounded by a couple of high speed / high volume traffic areas in the form of Miami Street to the east and Ireland Road to the south. But at the same time, the area has very little connection going east-west within the neighborhood. So looking at those 2 situations, we're proposing a layout for Miami Street of a 3-lane layout. So it introduces traffic calming, and in turn makes it safer for all users of the road, makes it safer for the motorists, makes it safer for pedestrians and cyclists as well. And then a component of that change is the intersections that are within that geography. We have the opportunity to make pedestrian crossings safer by putting in some curb bump outs and providing some narrowing to the crossing area for pedestrians. Then on Fellows Street, more of a simpler proposal, just to respect that we have a need for on-street parking and some also, again, other street users. So there's an opportunity to introduce parking lane stripes here that just offers a sort of a narrower travel lane, but then gives space, actually defines the travel lane, but then gives space for parking that can be a de facto space for bicyclists as well. All right, looking at our third project, this is one that takes a look at the availability of recreational or open space within the neighborhood. Obviously, we have a great single-use recreation space on the south end in the form of the golf course, but there's no such recreational space beyond the golf course. So there's also sort of a lack of opportunity space to locate recreational space. So one of the things that we want to pursue is forming a partnership or finding partnership with one of our stakeholders or other partners work within the neighborhood. So we might have an opportunity to introduce some green space that would be available for the neighborhood residents. The other item shown as a green dotted line with arrows, we talked about there being limited east-west connections in the neighborhood. As it stands now, we do have sort of a gap between Chippewa Street on the east and Chippewa Street on the west, and there's a chance to connect those two in the form of a non-motorized trail. And then we got two more goals. One of them is talking about just doing what we can to support a range of available housing types, and it's talking about producing housing and maintaining housing. So we talked about that in the form of Miami Hills and sort of the assistance that this plan process could offer to an investment in the Miami Hills apartments property. But we're also talking about looking at the available tools that the city has when it comes to other home improvement programs and introducing those programs and bringing them to the Miami Hills neighborhood. So we have one final goal, and that is talking about this beautification, and that could present itself in the form of adding street trees to the neighborhood, and also could come in the form of something more simpler of doing organized cleanups amongst neighborhoods, stakeholders, organizations that are within the neighborhood, and that might also have a side benefit, given that there's no right now there's no structured neighborhood group. Sometimes these are the kind of seeds that you plant to encourage further neighborhood organization, contact, and growth of those groups. So that reflects the end of our presentation, sort of a summarization of the plan document. We'd be happy to entertain any questions from the council. Thank you.
Council members, do you have any questions regarding Substitute Bill 20-23? Any questions? Council members, any questions? If not, Councilman Henry Davis, and then followed by Councilmember Jake Tescott.
Yes, I want to first say thank you for guys for putting the plan together, and I think that you guys have probably done as good of a job as you can. I want to first talk about the idea that we have right now of the streets and the streetscape projects and the bump out curves. I just want to record, it's not necessarily a question, but Pratt Street and the other streets in Kennedy Park have suffered because of these ideas that we talk about with the street calming solutions, I want us to take into account that when we shorten the streets and make them more, shorten the width of them, it causes more problems than we would like to believe. Although we want our neighborhoods to be more walkable, we want them to be more friendlier to pedestrians. There needs to be an understanding that that hasn't happened in the past, in current day as well. So as we are moving forward with this neighborhood, I don't want this neighborhood to be impacted like Kennedy Park has been impacted on how this is going to work, because it has not worked in Kennedy Park. It has caused a lot of confusion, a lot of traffic problems, whether it was a traffic jam or people or the traffic itself riding really fast throughout the neighborhood. So I want us to understand that it hasn't worked. I don't know what we can do to retool or replan put a plan together that makes more sense, but it has not worked. The other thing is that this is the question I have, threats to this particular project. Are there any threats that we have looked at or seen that will make this project null and void or hurt it or harm it?
Councilmember Davis, are you speaking about this neighborhood plan or
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I think that I don't see any particular threats to this. I think some challenges, of course, are to maintain the level of engagement with the residents across the neighborhood to ensure that we stay focused on the goals. I think that's probably the challenge of it. I don't see any threats. I do see the future of Miami Hills Apartments, and if it continues to slide, as a threat that is not good for the people who live there, but also the residents surrounding the apartments as well. So I think that in my mind, there's sort of nothing but positives to this, and what we're hoping is that not only will the tax credit project be successful, but that we'll be able to target some investment dollars into some of the other project goals that Chris mentioned.
Okay, now every plan has a strength, there has weaknesses, there has opportunities and threats. Every plan does. Are there any weaknesses that we can talk about that help strengthens this plan?
Weaknesses. I mean, I think that the things that probably again are potential weaknesses of the plan are really potential funding and funding sources to do some of the projects. Most of this neighborhood is not in a TIF district. Miami Hills Apartments itself is. So we have to make sure that we pass budgets that can maybe incrementally address issues within the neighborhood. So I think the weakness there is that we need to just stay on top of the funding of these projects.
Well, please let the council know where you need funding at, so we're well aware, so we can make this a reality, sir. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you both. Well, now the next person is Council Member Jake Tusco.
Yeah, thank you, Chair White. I actually have a comment. I don't know if this is the time for comments or.
Well, you could make a comment, and then we'll go after the next council person to the public.
Okay. So I thank you, Mr. Corcoran, and the whole planning team for this. I know it's been a difficult road because of COVID. I don't know about difficult, but has, I guess, posed some new and unique challenges. But I do want to use this time to just encourage the passage of this plan. I think it's a great step forward for this neighborhood on many fronts. Mr. Corcoran, as you pointed out, the apartments themselves, there's really no sustainable path forward for the apartments in their current condition without a without a tax credit renovation. And so in the way that this is a necessary step toward gaining the points that can be competitive in that process, again, I would fully urge the council to pass this neighborhood plan. Again, this is something that we've been talking about in terms of the apartments themselves. Many of you know, last year we had a big kind of to-do over the living conditions at the apartments. I know that the current owners have been making some incremental changes, but our code department had condemned many of the units, and it's a very bad situation for the residents of the Miami Hills apartments, and as you stated, for the folks around there as well. But I also want to point out that regardless of the impetus, as you stated, this plan is now, I think, it has the potential to breathe new life into the neighborhoods. Specifically, when we talk about walkability and being pedestrian friendly, those orange areas where you pointed out where there's no sidewalks now, I think it's critically important that we, as we are able, in terms of funding, that we address those issues. And for context, as many know, this is an area where there's a high concentration of Orthodox Jewish folks, and once a week at least, and then also on some high holy days or high holidays, they don't drive, and so they do walk throughout the neighborhood. And so I think increasing pedestrian safety, particularly as it as it relates to sidewalks and some of those bump out curbs, I think that's important. So thank you for the plan, and again, I would urge council as the district council person to pass this.
Thank you. Our next council person is Councilman Kenneth Lee, and then we go to the public portion of the meeting. Councilmember.
Thank you, Chairman. I thank you. Thank you, Ms. White, and those who are on the call today. One of my concerns or questions is about the people who currently live there, and how are we going to address those people who are not from our city but are living in Miami Hills, and what are the plans to engage them and help them move forward, and also with Miami Hills to improve the living conditions over there?
So the broader plan that the owners of the Miami Hills apartments is looking to do is, if they are awarded the tax credits, which would be a significant amount of money that would help them renovate, or at least the last time I heard, renovate completely all the units that currently are there. They were looking at doing some pretty major renovations because of the quality and the standard that's there now. So the tax credit project itself will, if awarded, will do have great impact on the residents of Miami Hills. I think we recognize that. We know that we want to make the most competitive, help them create the most competitive application, and that's why that, in spite of COVID and the challenges, we pursued doing this anyway, even to the point of implementing our own online engagement tools to do so. So I think the best thing is to support the project as best as possible, and I feel like this is a really strong part of that.
When you say that you guys have engaged with the residents, have you engaged with the African American community that's part of Miami Hills, those individuals that live in those apartments?
Yeah, so of the 878 postcards we sent out, I mean, that went to every unit within the Miami Hills apartments, as well as every house. So every unit within the apartments, every house, if the house was owned by somebody out of town or not, that didn't live there, they got a postcard as well. So we gave everybody multiple opportunities to log in, leave their comments, but we also made sure that if they didn't have access to a computer or a mobile device, that we had printed surveys that we could drop off for those people to do them, by hand. And I'm not sure anybody asked for that, but I can. Chris might be able to answer that question.
We had a few, but it was a handful that I spoke to, at least.
Okay. Are there any further questions before we go to the public? I see another hand, Jake Tuskow. Do you have a question?
It's not a question. Real quick, Chair White, if you'll indulge me, I was just going to tell Councilmember Lee that it sounds like he has some questions about the broader kind of engagement with the apartments and where we're at and where we've been, and I'd be happy to offline have that conversation if he's willing.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
No problem.
Thank you. We'll now move to the public hearing portion. Mr. Graham, is there anyone in the wishing to speak?
Yes, it seems as though there are a few individuals raising their hands here.
Please call them out and let them know that they have 3 minutes.
Sure. First, Ms. Rhonda Hughes. Rhonda, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please state your name and address for the record. You have 3 minutes.
Rhonda Hughes. 1029 Riverside Drive, South Bend.
Mm-hmm.
I like Representative Davis. I would have concern about some of the bump outs that the plan calls for. Again, I think the plan has lots of good ideas, but in some parts of the city, bump outs have been less than helpful. I think it would be a good idea to stripe the streets before making any closures to the street for construction. In some of the places downtown where there have been no turn lanes put in, people have been using them on a de facto basis, and this has been pointed out to city staff, and they said they would tweak these intersections to allow for turns, and that hasn't happened. Today I saw a police car turn at one of these places. I've seen buses turn and city vehicles. So if we're going to make modifications to traffic flow, I think we need to do them incrementally and adjust as we go rather than closing city streets to do construction that may or may not ultimately be helpful. In terms of the housing at Miami Hills apartment, I think it's critical that we do everything we can to support that housing. As you all know, we have a 6,000 unit shortage of low and moderate income housing in the city. This is an important part of our homelessness problem in the city. So anything we can do to support low-income housing units is a helpful piece. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. We'll go to the next person, Mr.
Yes,
Sparks.
Mr. Jesse Davis. Mr. Davis, at this time, if you could unmute yourself, please state your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks. Thank you.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana. I just want to echo that, number one, the bump outs can many times create more havoc than good, especially during winter seasons when we're plowing. It makes it much more difficult sometimes for the plow trucks to clean streets properly. But the Miami Hills apartment, obviously, we all know has been an issue for many, many years. We personally dealt with many sewer issues there over the years. And since the apartments are in a TIF district, will they be able to, if need be, if there's lack of funding, will they be able to move TIF funds from another TIF district to support this project if it's needed? That's my question.
Mr. Davis, once we end the public portion, I would ask the presenter to respond to your question. Thank you so much. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone else wishing to speak in support of the substitute resolution?
Council Vice President White, no, that exhausts the speakers list.
Okay, and there's no one present wishing to speak in opposition?
That is correct. No one is present to speak in opposition.
The public hearing portion is closed. I will turn back to the sponsors. You have 5 minutes to respond to the questions.
Sure. Thanks, Councilwoman White.
Mhm.
So in terms of the TIF question, when in our last TIF realignment that we did a couple summers ago, we purposely added the apartments into the Southside TIF. We hope and expect that the Southside TIF can address the funding or the partnership that we would be doing with the developer or the applicant of the tax credit project. I don't think or see any reason to shift funds from one to another, and I think we'd have to really look at that more from a legal perspective to see if that's possible. Generally, that's something that is frowned upon, but can do under certain circumstances. I'm not positive or sure that this would qualify as one of those circumstances, but it is in the Southside TIF.
Thank you. We'll now go back to the council portion. There is a motion and it has been seconded. If there's no other comments from council members, I would like to call for roll call if there's no other comments. Seeing none, Ms. Jones, will you please call the roll in regards to substitute resolution 20-23?
Councilmember Teschka,
Point of clarity, I'm not sure I remember the motion.
It was a motion to accept the substitute version of resolution 20-23.
Aye.
Palmer, sorry. Before you move on, Attorney Palmer.
Yes, Vice President White, the substitute was accepted.
Okay.
As far as being offered for vote. We're now at the point where it's proper to move for passage of the resolution.
Thank you so much. So I don't have to state substitute version anymore. So the motion is to move forward with the resolution 20-23. Ms.
I will
Jones.
make that motion.
Okay, the motion's been made. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Niskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Vice President White,
Aye.
9 ayes.
Resolution 20-23 has been adopted. Clerk Jones, would you please read resolution 20-24?
20-24, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, appointing an agent, negotiator, and an advisory Common Council negotiating team to represent the Common Council for the upcoming South Bend Fraternal Order of Police Lodge number 36 negotiations.
Thank you. Is there a committee report?
Yes, Vice President White, Resolution 2024 was heard in the Health and Public Safety Committee this afternoon and comes to the council with a favorable recommendation.
Thank you. There is a presenter, and I am the presenter. As I shared during the committee meeting this afternoon, we did receive a letter of intent from FOP Lodge number 36, notifying us that they would like to, and their intent to start negotiations for the upcoming bargaining for them. This resolution names a Common Council advisory team to represent the council, but also our agent. I would just like to read just the last section of the resolution. The Common Council of the City of South Bend hereby appoints Robert J. Palmer as its agent for the upcoming labor negotiations with the South Bend Fraternal Order of Police, Lodge number 36. Mr. Palmer shall be the Common Council chief spokesperson and negotiator concerning all matters related to the Common Council's right to establish the compensation of the police department by ordinance The Common Council also appoints as advisory Common Council negotiating team council members Sheila Niskowski, Councilman Henry Davis Jr., and Councilmember Jake Tuskoff. And I ask for your support of this resolution. Committee members, do you have any questions at this time? Seeing none, we'll go to the public hearing portion. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone waiting to make comments regarding this resolution?
No, ma'am, there are not.
Okay, and seeing there's no one wishing to speak in opposition as well.
That is correct. No members are willing to speak in opposition.
The public hearing is now closed. Council members, prior to entertaining a motion, do you have any comments? If not, I would like to entertain a motion regarding Resolution 20-24.
So moved.
Move for passage.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Niskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
The resolution stands adopted. Clerk Jones, will you please give first reading to Bill 31-20?
3120, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 1206 and 1214 Meade Street, Councilmanic District Number 2 in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
I would like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 31-20, that this bill be sent to ZNA, set for second reading and committee hearing on August 24, 2020.
So moved.
It's been
Second.
moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Niskowski,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. Will you please give first reading to Bill 32-20?
3220, first reading on an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of South Bend, Indiana, amending the zoning ordinance for property located at 2046 East South Bend Avenue, Councilmanic District Number 1 in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
I would like to entertain a motion regarding Bill 32-20, please.
I move that this be set for second reading and public hearing for our Zoning and Annexation Committee on August 24th.
Thank you. Is there a second?
A second.
Thank you. Ms. Jones, will you please call the roll?
Council Vice President White, this is Grant from the clerk's office. Just for clarity, we had been notified by the planning department that Councilmember Warner was notified as well. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is a Scrivener's error. That address is in fact located in Council District Number 4 in the City of South Bend, Indiana.
I got bumped off for a second. I was going to make a motion to amend the title of the bill. Vice President White.
Okay. This is Bill 32-20.
3220, yes. I would like to make a motion to amend the bill title to correct a Scrivener's error. It is actually in Councilmanic District 4.
Point of order procedurally, do I need to rescind my?
Yes.
So I'll move to.
We need to second the
motion.
motion. Yes. So the motion to rescind and second, we have a new motion, and that is to change the Councilmanic District to number 4. A motion is on the floor. Is there a second?
A second.
Clerk Jones, do we need to have roll call?
Yes. Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Niskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Now we need a motion regarding Bill 32-20.
I make
I
a
now move
motion
that
to
that
send
be,
it to the Planning Commission for August 17th and then set it on our agenda on August 24th.
And sent to the Zoning and Annexation Committee.
Zoning
Is there a
and
second?
A second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
aye.
Councilmember Niskowski,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We'll now move to unfinished business. Clerk Jones, would you read under unfinished business the appeal that is before us?
Appeal of the denial of a certificate of appropriateness, COA number 2020-0302, entitled Northern Indiana Historical Society, Inc., versus South Bend Historic Preservation Commission.
I believe that Councilwoman McBride, coming from ZNA, will make a recommendation regarding this particular appeal that's before the council.
Yes, thank you. I would like to make a motion to establish the schedule for the museum's appeal of the denial of its application for certificate of necessity. So I move to establish the following deadlines and hearing date on the appeal of the denial of a certificate of appropriateness, COA 2020-0302, in an appeal entitled Northern Indiana Historical Society, Inc. versus South Bend Historic Preservation Commission. The timeline would be Monday, August the 24th, 2020, to be established as the deadline for submission by the Historic Preservation Commission to file a certified copy of the minutes, transcript, if any and all documents of record regarding action taken by the staff of the commission on COA application 2020-0302. The second timeline, Monday, August 31st, 2020, be established as the deadline for receipt by the city clerk's office of any submission by the petitioners or their attorney of the evidentiary and administrative record and position statement, which shall include an introduction, standard of review, issues, facts, argument, or contentions, and any exhibits. This submission must be made to the office of the city clerk and opposing counsel representing the Historic Preservation Commission. The third date will be Monday, September 7th, 2020. Be established as the deadline for receipt by the city clerk's office of any submission by the Historic Preservation Commission or by the legal counsel representing the commission of the evidentiary and administrative record and position statement, which shall include an introduction, standard of review, issues, facts, argument, or contentions, and any exhibits. This submission must be made to the office of the city clerk and petitioners or opposing counsel representing the petitioners. The fourth timeline, Monday, September 14, 2020, is the date on which the South Bend Common Council, at its regular 7 p.m. meeting under agenda item unfinished business, shall hear the appeal involving COA application 2020-0302 and an appeal entitled Northern Indiana Historical Society, Inc. versus South Bend Historical Preservation Commission, which shall be conducted pursuant to a 2-page document entitled Procedures Governing Appeals of Historic Preservation Commission to the Common Council, on file with the office of the city clerk and sent by that office to all parties of records. This have been agreed upon by both parties, and that is my motion.
Thank you. So the motion as read, is there a second? I would like to also ensure that all council members have a copy of the schedule as well as what information is being asked. And I know the clerk office, you should have a copy as well. So your motion has been read. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Clerk Jones, would you please call the roll?
I'm sorry. Councilmember Davis,
Aye.
Councilmember McBride,
Aye.
Councilmember Warner,
Aye.
Councilmember Teschka,
Aye.
Councilmember Nisgowsky,
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Aye.
Councilmember Hammond,
Aye.
Councilmember Lee,
Aye.
Vice President White.
Aye.
9 ayes.
Thank you. We'll now move to another item under unfinished business, and that is election of common council officers. I will turn this portion over to our attorney as well as to the city clerk. Mr. Palmer, any comments that you would like to make prior to turning this portion over the meeting to our city clerk?
No, Vice President White. I think the city clerk has the procedure for the first part of the elections.
Clerk Jones?
Yes. The office of President of the Common Council is vacant. Unless a council member moves to suspend the rules and have an election, that motion passes with it, and have an election, and that motion passes with at least 6 votes, the vice president becomes president. Does anyone wish to make a motion? Okay, if there is no motion, then Vice President White is president. Turn it over to the President White. Congratulations.
Well, thank you so much. And I, wait just a minute. I thought I did see a hand from our attorney, Mr. Palmer. Okay.
Yes,
Attorney
President
Palmer.
White, I just wanted to be the first to congratulate you, but Clerk Jones beat me to the punch.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And also to my fellow council members, I appreciate your confidence, and we're in this together. There's no I, it's we, okay? Thank you so much. Mr. Palmer, I see your hand up again.
Yes, President White, now we need to conduct an election for the vacant position of Vice President.
I would now like to entertain a motion for the Vice President for the South Bend Common Council. Any nomination? Mr. Warner?
I nominate Sharon McBride for Vice President of the Common Council.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
I nominate Henry Davis for Vice President.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, we have 2 individuals who have been nominated. And Mr. Palmer, we first go with the first nomination. Is that correct?
That's correct, President White.
Okay. The first person that's been nominated has been Councilwoman
Excuse me,
Sharon.
President White?
Yes.
You just need to take a roll call vote, and each member identify which of the 2 nominees they vote for.
Okay. Would I have to do roll call because we're virtual?
Yes, you do have to do roll call.
Okay, we have 2 individuals who have been nominated for Vice President. Those 2 individuals are Councilwoman Sharon McBride and Councilman Henry Davis. Clerk Jones?
Okay.
Call the roll.
Councilmember McBride, Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm sorry, I was muted. Councilmember McBride.
Okay. Councilmember Warner,
Councilmember McBride.
Councilmember Teschka,
Councilmember McBride,
Councilmember Niskoski,
Councilmember McBride.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Councilwoman McBride,
Councilmember Hammond,
Councilmember Davis,
Councilmember Lee,
Councilmember McBride.
Councilmember Davis,
Councilmember Davis.
Vice President White. I'm sorry,
Councilmember-
President White.
Councilmember McBride.
Okay, we have 7 for Councilmember McBride and 2 for Councilmember Davis. Congratulations.
Well, no, okay. Attorney Bob Palmer, you have a comment?
Yes, President White. Now we have a vacancy in the chairman of the committee of the whole, and we need to entertain nominations and hold an election for that position.
Right here.
Okay, thank you. We now will entertain nominations for the committee of the whole. I see 2 would like to nominate Councilwoman Sheila Niskoski. Okay, I'm losing mine. Are there any other nominations for committee of the whole? I thought I saw a hand go up for Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan, as well as I believe someone else. Councilwoman Rachel Thomas Morgan, would you like to make a nomination?
yes, my nominee was already named. I was also wanting to nominate Councilwoman Sheila Niskoski.
Is there any other nominations? I thought I saw another hand. Councilman Troy Warner.
No, I had no nominees. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other nominations? Seeing none, clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Warner,
Councilmember Sheila Niskoski.
Councilmember Teschka,
Councilmember Niskoski,
Councilmember Niskoski,
Councilmember Niskoski.
Councilmember Thomas Morgan,
Councilmember Niskoski,
Councilmember Hammond,
Councilwoman Niskoski,
Councilmember Lee,
Councilwoman Niskoski.
Councilmember Davis,
I got a question before I vote. Is it too late to drop any nominations or nominations closed?
I believe the nominations are closed since we're voting.
Okay.
But I will yield.
Aye.
okay. Councilmember McBride,
Councilwoman Niskoski.
President White,
Councilwoman Sheila Niskoski.
9 ayes.
Thank
Congratulations.
you. I would like to give words of congratulations to all the new officers. And again, as I stated, it's no I, it's we as we move forward in the work that we have to do for all of our citizens for the city of South Bend. And the only way that we're going to be effective is that we have to work together. And most importantly, as we continue to move forward, especially during COVID, we know that the challenges that we have are not just current, but they're going to be ongoing for a period of time. I'm very confident that we can get the job done and our citizens will reap the benefits of our efforts. So I appreciate every one of you, and we'll continue, just roll up your sleeves because August starts the budget process. Is there any new business? Council members, any announcements that you would like to make in terms of new business?
Yes,
Would you please let me, who's speaking?
this is Councilwoman McBride.
Okay, Councilwoman Sharon McBride.
Yes, I would just like to announce, thank you first of all to the council for agreeing to participate this Saturday from 11 to 3 at Howard Park. We are hosting with University of Notre Dame's women's basketball, School City of Mishawaka, South Bend Community School Corporation, and several other donors and sponsors throughout the county and the city. And we are going to have a big mask and sanitizer giveaway at Howard Park. And the Parks Department is having Boomer, and they will also be having hot dogs. The city clerk's office is providing hot dogs and chips for the children, and there's going to be social distancing markers throughout, and we're going to be encouraging people to come take a pack and move on and go home. Everyone is required to wear masks, but we are going to have a great community event this Saturday from 11 to 3 at Howard Park. Thank you all.
Thank you. Are there any other items under new business?
Yes, President White, I have one.
Sheila Niskoski.
Thank you. The South Bend Tenant Association is going to be having a backpack food giveaway. It's going to be on August the 8th at Logan Industries off of Jefferson. It's going to be from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. We are also going to have some people from voters registration to do registration for new voters on site as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? Seeing now, we'll now go to privilege of the floor. Individuals who wish to address the council must first state their name and address. You'll have 3 minutes to speak to any topic that was not part of our agenda. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone wishing to speak under privilege of the floor?
Yes, Councilmember White. We have 3 individuals on the speakers list. The first one is Mr. Jesse Davis. Jesse, at this time, if you'd like to unmute yourself and please state your name and address for the record.
Jesse Davis, P.O. Box 10205, South Bend, Indiana.
Can I have a point of order, President White?
Yes.
This is probably a question for Attorney Palmer. It's my understanding that we need residential addresses. Is that the case?
Mr. Palmer?
Actually, the code just says address. It's been interpreted throughout my time with the council to be a PO address, a mailing address, or a work address.
Okay,
Thank you. Mr. Davis, you have 3 minutes.
Okay, anyhow, first I would like to just encourage every council member to continue the work on the homeless issue. Obviously, that's been a huge problem for a long time, and you know, we've had a working group for several years and still haven't seemed to be able to come up with any resolutions there. So I want to encourage the council members to continue working on that, even though the veto was not overrode. And one of the other things I was just kind of curious on, you know, all these large gatherings in South Bend that have been going on recently. I mean, is there a specific reason why I guess we haven't had any police involvement or enforcement on some of these huge gatherings? We've had numerous shootings. I've lost track of the shootings this year. I don't even know where our numbers are at, but a lot of them have occurred amongst these huge gatherings with 200-300 people at a time. And, you know, streets are blocked off and a lot of craziness going on. So I'm just curious on why we haven't seen any police involvement in that, in trying to, you know, stop these huge gatherings, especially with the COVID and, you know, everybody talking about, you know, large gatherings causing the numbers to go up. I've seen a lot of videos online of these gatherings, and I don't believe I've ever seen a single mask on anybody at these gatherings. So I'm just kind of curious on why these things are being allowed to continue, and it doesn't appear that there's any involvement from law enforcement to try to curtail that behavior that's going on the weekends. Kudos to the people from the public and also council members who have went out to the gas stations where these things were going on. And it has curtailed it a little bit at the gas stations, but they just moved to a different location. So it's really not solving the issue much. And we've got a lot of people getting unfortunately wounded and people getting killed in our streets.
Thank you, Mr. Davis, and I will follow up with your question, and hopefully we'll be able to get back with you in a day or two.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
President
Mr.
White. Yep,
Sparks.
the next individual on the list is David Niezgodsky. David, at this time, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please state your name and address for the record.
Yes, hi, David Niezgodsky, 4942 Scenic Drive, and I would like to just also speak for a couple minutes tonight. Permission to speak?
Yeah, oh, please. Please.
That's okay. Well, good evening, Madam President and other members of the South Bend Common. I'd like to take a couple minutes also to speak on the homelessness situation that is currently taking place in the Monroe Park neighborhood, and just very shortly also on the protests that were held on this Saturday. First, I would like to say that I am sorry that I wasn't home when the protesters came by. Actually, I had just left probably 5 minutes prior. I was called by my daughter. She asked me if I could stop out to the drugstore and pick up some medicine for my grandson. Actually, my grandson Elijah had a high fever that day, and he had to go to the emergency room with his mom later that day. And he was tested for the COVID virus. And being 3 years old, that's a bit of an ordeal. But he actually, thank goodness, he tested negative. He does have a virus, and he's getting better. But the thing is, if I had been there, I would have gone out. But afterwards, I watched all the videos, and what I viewed that day was really a lot of taunting, intimidation, and in the case of our home, most likely trespassing and placed alongside the intimidating measures that were deployed. I say these things not because I'm trying to talk in some manner of wanting to retaliate or anything like that. I recognize that the people that were present are passionate about what they are doing. So I applaud their passion. I just cannot applaud their means. It comes back down to just what you had just said in the last few minutes, Madam President. And this is what it's going to come down to. It's not just the department or administration that's going to be able to help make this better. We're in the middle of people's stress is running so high this period of time. We're in the middle of the global pandemic of COVID-19. We're faced with much greater stress. We're faced with people that have lost their jobs, that are still unemployed, and we're faced with a situation of homelessness that, to some extent, we have always had. All I can say is that I just encourage all of us as a community partners, members of the council, the mayor's office, and myself, and the people that are so passionate to want and trying to help these folks. We all have to come together as a community. That's the only way we're going to make this better. We cannot go forward by causing stress or distress among other individuals within the community. We have to work to make this better by all working together. I just recently have made some further inquiries at the State House in order to try to see what other available funding might be available. The COVID dollars coming from the federal government, those are not dollars that South Bend has received as of yet at this point in time. Those are dollars that have to be applied for. Not only has the federal government put a lot of restrictions on those dollars, the state government also has put further restrictions. That doesn't mean that they might not be able to be applied to help this situation. But the bottom line is I'm going to want to do the very best I can to help. But let's all come together as a community and work towards progress, because that's the only way we walk forward. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Sparks?
Yes.
Have another person.
White.
Are you keeping time?
Well, I can now. Margaret File is next. Margaret, please state your name and address and unmute yourself first and proceed with your remarks. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
I certainly can.
Good evening. My name is Margaret File. I live at 511 South St. Joseph Street in Monroe Park. And I just would like to affirm what State Senator Nizgatsky just said, the call to come together. I think that is the only way forward. And in that spirit, I just would like, on behalf of the Monroe Park Neighborhood Association, to thank you council members for coming out in support Friday and Saturday. And I know some of you wanted to be there and couldn't make it, and have been supportive in other ways. We deeply appreciate that, and we remain hopeful that we might find a way forward together that would be of benefit to people currently living in the tents, as well as neighbors living in houses in our community. One thing that I talked with Councilman Teshka about on Saturday morning was the idea of perhaps proposing a timeline or asking the administration for a timeline of action. That's something that, of course, we have to abide by in many different areas of our lives. And I know that I wouldn't probably make any progress whatsoever if I didn't have deadlines in my daily life. So, for instance, a deadline for some plan to open a low barrier shelter so that people currently living in tents would have a next step that isn't a tent, and then some plan for a longer range sustainable housing plan for our city. Having those benchmarks could really help us. And again, this is not at all meant to convey any kind of obstructive spirit. On the contrary, I think it's very constructive to have deadlines. I think that's all I would have to say for tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Val, and we will definitely submit your recommendations on to the administration. The council members have heard those as well. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone else waiting to speak?
Yes, Council President White, there are 3 more individuals on the speakers list. A few individuals raised their hand as the announcement was made. The next individual is Mary Ann Wilson. Mary Ann, at this time, if you'd like to unmute yourself, please state your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks. You'll have 5 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
My name is Mary Ann Wilson, and I live at 531 South St. Joseph Street. And my family lives directly across the street from the tent city, and I wanted to echo Margie's thanks to everybody who has been working with us to try and find a solution to ensure the safety and peacefulness of our neighborhood, and also for the individuals who are in tents across the street, and for all the work initially with the idea of a resolution, and then also since the votes have taken place on that, the conversations that have happened, again with Margie, it really meant quite a lot to have a number of people be able to come into the neighborhood to walk around and just to see what is happening, as well as those who have followed up with us, been in touch over the phone. It has really meant a lot. So I want to thank you for all of your work on that. And then since the decision on this resolution has come to an end, my request is that this continue to be something that the council takes very seriously. And I also agree with the suggestions that Margie just made as far as some form of accountability in the way of timelines, or asking for the administration to report on the progress that is being made. I know that this issue is complex and there are many different facets of it. And for those of us who are living with it outside of our door every single day, those who are in a tent every single day, every day really does make a difference. And so the extent that we can pursue progress as much as possible with a sense of urgency, that would really mean a tremendous amount. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Sparks, I think they have 3 minutes to speak on the privilege of the floor.
Yes.
Not 5. Okay, the next person.
Next individual is Emma Van Hooser. Emma, please unmute yourself. Please state your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks.
Hi, this is Emma Van Hooser, and I live at 518 South St. Joseph Street. I just wanted to share a little bit about some of the recent developments in the encampments at the end of our street, South St. Joseph Street. The tents have contracts with Doulos Chapel, so those have continued, as we know, but they have now attracted increasingly aggressive activity from those who aren't even necessarily without a house. So it's very clear to us who live in the neighborhood and also those who are service providers trying to connect with those in the shelters, in the tents, that large drug dealers or at-large drug dealers are taking advantage of this location to do their activities. Over the last couple of weeks, we've seen an escalation in the kinds of dangerous behaviors that accompany this drug culture, and I'm just worried that they are already very extreme and that we have had some very close calls. I wanted to share one such incident that happened last Tuesday. I was in my backyard around 8 o'clock and heard a shot. I walked to the front yard, saw a large crowd gathered on the opposite side of the tents, where there has been a crowd with lots of activity. A white Escalade that has caused us a lot of trouble in the past in our neighborhood had pulled up, and some man was outside of the Escalade with a shotgun in the air. The crowd was still for a couple minutes, and then the man got into his car and pulled out. I crossed the street with my neighbors, and together we made a police call. The police came. They did make some arrests of other folks who had escalated the violence, but the fellow in the car kept circling around us. So we just had this 2.5-hour experience of trying to call the police and seeing this vehicle circle our neighborhood. And it ended trying to take somebody who had OD'd at the other end of the street home as he was about to collapse onto our highway and get rolled over. He
You
had
have
also
30 seconds.
advantage of. So I just want to register some concerns that we have about the kinds of cultures that are developing. And whereas last time we were concerned with the need for shelter, now there's a much more pressing need for safety, that this kind of culture that goes unchecked will generate. I do want to thank all the council members who have walked with us in this situation. We are very grateful for your support. And we would like to lift up this side of our street for you. In fact, the white Escalade, as I speak, is across the street again. And I'm very much at a loss for what to do to ensure safety on this street corner. So thank you for your continued care and support of us.
Thank you. Mr.
Council
Sparks,
President
how
White,
many more
yes,
do we have?
there's one more individual, Ms. Rachel Mills. Rachel, if you'd like to unmute yourself
This
at this
will be the
time, please
last
state
one.
your name.
Thank you.
Address for the record. Thank you.
Hello, this is Rachel Mills. I believe there is one other individual ahead of me for the privilege of the floor.
No, Mr. Brandon Turk has removed himself. You're the last speaker.
In the message from Emma Van Hooser, there's also an individual named Casey Mullaney who is logged in using the same computer but would like to have her own 3 minutes to speak.
We have to make sure, I will yield to Mr. Sparks and make sure that we are recognizing those that are in the queue. But Mrs.
Council
Mills,
President
please
White,
speak.
I would defer to your council parliamentarian or your
I'm
council.
going to ask Mrs. Mills to go ahead and make her comments, and then I will go to the attorney, Palmer, because we can only go with what we see. Mrs. Mills, would you please make your comments?
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Rachel Mills. I'm a resident of 518 South St. Joseph Street. And as a resident of the Monroe Park neighborhood and with my work at Our Lady of the Road, I would just like to echo the voices of neighbors and other community members who have already spoken. And I would like to call the council and our South Bend community to not lose a sense of urgency about this pressing issue of homelessness and safe housing, especially with the uncertainty of the current tent camp having to leave Doulos Chapel on the 31st. And I hope that we can cultivate more creative thinking and a spirit of collaboration and increased communication to move forward. And as Emma Van Hooser just mentioned some recent incidents in our neighborhood, I hope that even if we cannot come to very swift action on the next steps forward with homelessness, I hope that we can have swift action to address the increasing violence and gun violence in our neighborhood. So thank you again for all of your time.
Thank you for your comments. Mr. Sparks, is there anyone else waiting to speak?
Council President White, there was one individual mentioned in an original message that I didn't read, and that was the individual that the previous individual that gave remarks was referring to. I yield to the better judgment of your council attorney to allow that individual to speak. I apologize for my mishap. I'll try not to let it happen again.
Well, I would say with Mr. Palmer that he has indicated interest to speak, that we need to allow him to speak, and he'll be the last speaker, and he has 3 minutes.
It's Casey Mulaney. Casey, please say your name and address for the record and proceed with your remarks.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Casey Mulaney. I also live at 518 South St. Joseph Street. I want to express my gratitude to the members of the council who were able to come and walk around and visit our neighborhood with us on Friday and Saturday morning. I know that it was a short notice invitation, so I would also like to extend an invitation to anyone on the council who was not able to join us for whatever reason, as well as to the mayor, if you could please pass this along to him and any member of his staff. We would love to have you to come and walk the neighborhood with us at any point. As my housemate Emma mentioned, the white Escalade that we know is a drug van is currently sitting in the spot on South Street where it always sits. We're pretty worried about the public health effects of having drugs and guns in our neighborhood. One thing that we'd like to reiterate, though, is that we're not interested in just kind of kicking this problem down the street a little further by kicking all the homeless people out of our neighborhood. What we're looking for is a solution that really integrates people who are currently unhoused or are participating in drug activity back into society. We're interested in whatever creative solutions that the council is able to put together in order to make some sort of dignified shelter situation possible as quickly as possible for the health of the neighborhood, but also for the health of the whole city. We are ready and willing to continue to provide support as a neighborhood association. We are happy to talk at any point. We're really looking for political will to take action on this issue. And we're here to support any positive projects going forward. So I want to thank you all for your attention to this issue, and we're really looking forward to continuing to work with you. Thanks.
And thank you as well. That ends the public portion in terms of privilege of the floor.
President White?
Yes.
There is one more requesting to speak.
Well, where is that person?
Mike Coleman?
President White, he is in the chat room.
Okay, please.
Has indicated he wants to speak.
Okay, yes, no problem then. I did not see him. So will he please go ahead and speak?
Hi, I'm Mike Coleman.
Thank you.
I'm Mike Coleman. I'm president of the Monroe Park Neighborhood Association. I live at 508 East South Street. I want to also say thank you for all of the council support that has come through our neighborhood and walked with us this past Friday. It was very encouraging and very hopeful that progress is going to be made in relieving both the suffering of our neighbors and the suffering of the people living in the tents in our neighborhood. Tonight was the first time I've heard about some protests on Saturday. I was unaware that that had taken place, and I'm sorry for any of the distress that that may have caused some of our council people. I hope that, like most people have said, we can move forward with win-win solutions as quickly as possible. We've been waiting since May, when this first started, for some solutions, and we've had several conversations with the mayor, and we're still waiting for some solutions to turn this into a win-win scenario for all of us. Thank you for your time, and we'll stay in touch.
Thank you too, and thank everyone for your comments as well. We'll take them under full consideration. We'll make sure that they get to the appropriate leaders within the city, but also the council members. They've heard all of your concerns as well, and we do take them very seriously. If there's no one else in the chat room, Mr. Sparks, is there anyone else wishing to speak at this time?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you so much. If there's no other business, then this meeting stands adjourned. Thank you so much. Everyone stay healthy and safe, and remember that we're in this together. Take care, and we'll be talking with all of you very shortly. Good night.
Good night, President White.
Stay healthy and
Good night,
safe.
everyone.
Okay. Bye, everyone.
Congratulations.
Bye.
Thank you, President White.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.